Good morning, good morning, good morning. This is Paul from AAC. Today we're just going to do a return video to the RedSea Peninsula Nano. Just an initial update, how do we feel about the tank, and how do we think the animals are doing and whatever. We have to say we're so pleased. We can't think of another aquarium in the marketplace which for the money is better than a RedSea Max Nano Peninsula or its smaller cousin, the RedSea Max itself. So pleased. I mean, this tank has, in terms of economics, if any of you are wondering, has got to be possibly one of the cheapest aquariums I've ever owned in terms of electrical consumption and the ease. And I think it really does come down to when you're setting one of these types of aquariums up, you have to accept the limitations. And if you can accept the limitations of the system, then you'll do really well when you won't be constantly replacing animals that you might have lost. So we really decided early on that we didn't want to put in there any too complex animals. That said, we're now in the world of actually introducing one or two species of animals that would be regarded as rather difficult. So aside from all the usual subjects that we all love, the ones that are really easy like your GSP and your toadstools and your light-loving gorgonians, we've also started experimenting with these. These are the corkscrew gorgonian. Now, we wouldn't recommend these for the beginner. These would be regarded as moderately difficult. Some say they're partially photosynthetic. Some people say that they're more hungrier than most other MPS corals, but you can see the polyps on these are absolutely fantastically extended. One of my favourites at the moment that was doing really well, the weeping willow toadstool. If I was I'll probably get asked for these every week, and I have to tell you that they're not that commonly available. Jumbo Sinularia type corals in there, as well as the classic Nephthia species. We've got a new one here. I'm just sort of calling this one, I think it's actually a Kenyan species. I call it mouse towel. Absolutely love this soft coral. I need to identify it for certain, but I'm thinking it's Sinularia, could be Lamella. And the one that everyone loves in this system, we've got a big piece of the golden bush coral, which was actually donated to us from a customer. And this is an orange jagger sponge. Now, sponges are incredibly temperamental. I'm definitely not going to encourage you to go out rushing buying sponges, but this particular species we find rather easy. We've also got the classic cabbage corals in here as well. We've got 2 or 3 species of those in here. This one's an Australian one, but we've also got the classic green Indonesian ones. What was it, Dan, that again? Dan, Neospongioides. Yes, Neospongioides, which again is said to be partially photosynthetic and partially non-photosynthetic. Big Balinese green Rhycordia there. I'm going to discuss today about really the nutrients, because the nutrients are finally climbing, and we're seeing our first little bit of turf algae here, and that's despite introducing some Mithrax crab species. So we'll look to manually remove this little bit of turf on a water change that we're going to perform shortly. Still got these crazy mushrooms, or the bounce pincushions, and we've even included the odd little stony coral now. So we've got some little frags of Diaceris in here that seem to be coping quite well. The Caribbean frilly gorgs are doing rather well. And now I'm just going to show you the first 2 stony corals that we've added as a bit of an experiment. I've got a trumpet coral in here, or candy cane, Caulastrea, one of the neon green ones. And because the light source in this aquarium is only a 50-watt LED, we decided to put it up quite high. There it is in focus there now. It's something called a button scolly. Again, these will be from quite a nutrient rich environment, so we thought we'd give that a try. You can see some of the Cabbage corals, again, I mentioned earlier, the Indonesian one, the green one, jasmine pollet, which is doing rather well. So I don't think we've lost a single coral, have we, Dan, in this system since we set it up. It's just important to note that if you stock a tank properly and you really do understand the limitations of what you're buying, it can be a very economic hobby. Now, if you imagine in this little system here now, it isn't going to be long before we're trimming more corals. So ultimately, it's become a very productive system as well. What we'll do now is we'll look at some of the fish. Probably the obvious members to talk about of fish species we've added since the last video is we're putting some of these red spot tail cardinals. New customers coming from freshwater tropicals will always go, well, why do you want them? They just look like neons. But in actual fact, it's very difficult to find some nice easy care shoaling species. Now, I wouldn't necessarily put these in the easy care category actually. They're rather delicate little fish, but they do give your Nano the right scowl. This is the Jan's Flame pipefish, and boy, look at him, and he's settled so well. Right with him there's something called a linky goby. That was a captive bred species from biota, and let's see if we can grab a good image of him there. Oh, he's just dived away. We've still got the geometric hawk. Oh look, there's a little mithrax crab that's popped out. It looks to me to be the Jansen's Flame pipefish show at the moment, so we'll capture a little bit more film of him while we've got the opportunity. What a spectacular fish. The hawkfish has made an appearance. I say hawkfish, he's actually more related to an amphia, but you may have seen these around. He's what we call the he's got loads of different names. When I was first introduced to him, he's called a cherry hopper hawkfish. Some people call him the geometric hawkfish. We thought we'd just take a few test results, and this is what we've currently got, which is a salinity of 1.0265. Now that needs dropping just a tiny bit. DKH has fallen a little, 6.5. Probably need to add a little bit more KH grow. Phosphate has risen somewhat, so that needs addressing. And we've got a 415 calcium and a 1260 mag, which isn't too out of balance. Now it's time to do a bit of maintenance, so we're going to carry out a small partial water change today. This will be water change number 4 since it's been set up. So imagine that, 4 water changes, that's all in 9 months, 8-9 months. I mean, that has got to be one of the most cost-effective systems that I've ever set up. And in terms of power consumption as well, this is definitely the recession-proof reef tank for certain. So our sort of choice has always been RedSea Blue Bucket. It is for most of my coral farm as well, by the way. This gives you, as it says on the bucket there, 8 DKH at 1.026. So we're refilling the system now. Nice little tip actually. Get yourself set up with a small water change pump. That way you haven't got to risk leaning a huge amount of seawater on the edge of the glass trying to pour it in, or use a smaller jug, but that's more painstakingly slow. This will take us no time at all to refill. It always pays to get some sort of decent tools, and along with your algae magnet, when you first buy your Max Nano Peninsula or Max, just think about the idea of how do I return the water back to a tank, because you don't really want to be lifting 25 litres of water above the system. You pose an awful lot of risk to the glass by leaning anything on it. So by doing it this way, it refills slowly, doesn't put too much stress on the glass. Okay, so we've now refilled it. You can see even the corals, I mean some of them are closed, like the clove after such a drastic water change, which is to be expected right up on the higher zone. But even our bush coral there, you know, it's a little bit shriveled after such a large water change. But as long as you're very careful to match your salinity, although we did lower ours a tiny bit this time because it was running a bit high. As long as you're very careful with your temperature, you won't shock any animals. It's not unusual. If you think a lot of these are tidal or rock pool species, they'll tolerate some, as the divers call it, some thermocline, some colder water, as long as it's not drastically colder. You know, 1 or 2 degrees difference in temperature is not going to cause any real problems. So hopefully now this will mean, because we've changed 25% of the water, we should have reduced some of that phosphate and some of that nitrogen that had accumulated. But we're going to just move over and just quickly talk about Nopox. Now, I'm fancying giving this a go on this particular aquarium because I believe that Nopox, in some respects, although it's there to reduce nutrients, it will actually encourage different species of bacteria, which in turn, you know, these free swimming bacteria probably do help the corals as well. So now we're here every day. This is where Nopox can be sometimes an issue because obviously ideally once you start you don't really want to stop. So RedSea do make, I believe, a 2-channel and a 4-channel doser, so you could always hook it up to a doser, but this was all about economy. So rather than use a doser, we're going to manually dose it. I don't really think it hurts to miss a day or 2 here and there, but ideally once you start this Nopox program it's better to stay on that train. But to give you an idea, what was the dosage rate roughly on 100 litres, Dan, for the Nopox?
1 mil in 100 litres.
Yeah, so 1 mil per 100 litres. I mean, it couldn't be easier for the Max Nano Peninsula because we're dealing with 100 litres. So just 1 mil a day, which I believe, based on this bottle size, so this isn't the biggest and most economical bottle that you could buy, I believe it's somewhere in the region, is it 4 pence a day?
About 4p a day.
So it's about 4p a day to manage your phosphate and nitrate using Nopox. And of course we need to keep an eye on that KH because as we saw, and I still favour KH Coralline Grow because KH Coralline Grow's adding a little bit of iodine as well as a little bit of alkalinity. So I actually really think that this is the #1 nano product. Instead of using like the foundation elements like B, A and C, well, if you haven't got a lot of stony corals and all you're trying to do is buffer up the carbonate hardness, I don't think you can go far wrong with KH Coralline Grow. I've made a comment before that in the last video, I think it was, yes, we are a RedSea dealer. Yes, this is going to sound like we're selling their products, but trust me, if I thought it was rubbish, it wouldn't make it into store. You know, this particular range of products, these 3 in particular, AB Plus Coral Nutrition, KH Coralline Grow and Nopox, are very, very undervalued, I think, in terms of their effectiveness for the smaller system. They're very economical to use, and they're very easy to use as well. Just go easy on the food. I've seen some customers before go absolutely mental with AB Plus and then blame the product as though it's the product's fault. Just take it easy. Although RedSea give you a guide in the instructions, it is up to you to measure your, you know, your phosphate and your nitrate and your alkalinity, and these, as I've said before, should be your, that's where you get your answers from testing your own water. So if you're going to use a Nopox, don't buy Nopox unless you've got a phosphate and a nitrate test kit. You know, if you really want something really good, you have to do the testing. Now if this was a stony coral aquarium, then, you know, and you were including torch corals and perhaps some more difficult species in it, make sure that of course you are monitoring all of your foundation elements at least 2 or 3 times a week, and be prepared perhaps to hook up a doser because you wouldn't want to miss that alkalinity supplement. But the nice thing with a soft coral display like this, it really doesn't need much more. And this is one of the reasons why I really love this little system. You think of all the systems that you know about at AAC, you know, they cost me money, lots of it. But this little thing is just unbelievable. I absolutely love it. Anyway, I think that will do for today. Hope you've enjoyed it. By all means, comment below, subscribe. Maybe put some comments about your own experience of a Max Nano, if you have one now, and how you feel about it.